Hundreds of people are out on the streets of Yangon. Monks, students, the young and old. Many are dressed in red, the colour of the National League for Democracy Party, or the NLD. It won November's election by a landslide, a result the military has refused to recognise, citing unsubstantiated allegations of fraud. The banners read, "Against military dictatorship." These people are calling for the release of elected leader Aung San Suu Kyi and others who've been detained. Protests have grown from just banging pots at night in Yangon to a civil disobedience movement. Medical staff went on strike first and were joined on Friday by lecturers and other government employees.
We don't want this military coup which unlawfully seized power from our elected government. We don't want anyone who steals power and then forms their own government. We're no longer going to work with them. We want the military coup to fail.
The threat of arrest is real. Australian Sean Turnell, an economic advisor to Aung San Suu Kyi, was reportedly taken into custody on Saturday. Another key aide, Win Tain, who called on the public to oppose the coup, was detained on Friday on charges of sedition. The attorney for Suu Kyi and the deposed president, Win Myint, says he hasn't been able to contact either of them.
As far as I know, they're under house arrest. Aung San Suu Kyi is in her private home, not one given by the government, and Win Myint is not at the president's residence, but in a separate home. That is what I heard.
Activists are also being held. This is the moment that Wei Nin says her father, a former student protest leader, was taken away by soldiers.
It's been 5 days since my father and other activists were arrested early hour on Monday morning. And since then, we haven't heard anything about their situation, where they're being held, or their health condition. So all the family members are very worried about them.
The military is gradually cutting off the population from one another and the outside world, first by blocking Facebook, then Twitter and Instagram, and now shutting down the internet. UK-based internet monitoring group NetBlock says as at Saturday 2 p.m. local time, internet connectivity in Myanmar had fallen to 16% of ordinary levels. Suu Kyi's party has declared itself the sole legitimate representative of the people. In a show of defiance, about a dozen NLD MPs convened a symbolic parliamentary session on Thursday. Yangon regional MPs held a swearing-in ceremony via Zoom. International pressure on Myanmar is growing. The UN Security Council has called on the military to release Aung San Suu Kyi and others who are being detained. The US is considering targeted sanctions. And in the region, Malaysian and Indonesian leaders have called on the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN, to hold a special meeting. But the generals have been down this road before. Myanmar's military leaders were shunned by the West when they ran the country from 1962 to 2011. They won't be giving up power so easily. Florence Louis, Al Jazeera, Kuala Lumpur.
This is Life That Matters. Welcome to all of you. I'm Kailun, Penang State Assembly man for Macang Bubuk, your moderator for tonight live streaming. Tonight highlights: is democracy in retreat? Why the democracy in Malaysia and Myanmar are going into reverse? How we got into this kind of situation? But first, here is my take. Democracy is often seen as the universal value, but due to the economic downturn and ineffective of the executive or the elected government, some people feel that democracy not necessarily a good option for the country. Can democracy make our country better? What kind of democracy that we are talking about? How to make democracy work? Pandemic COVID-19 becomes an excuse for autocrats to grab more power. A state of emergency has been declared in Malaysia to tackle the coronavirus pandemic, which effective from January 11 to August 1st. No parliamentary or state assembly sitting and no election during emergency. On February 1st, Myanmar military arrested leaders of the country, civilian-led government, and declared 1 year state of emergency. With the military coup again, Myanmar's decade-long experiment with democracy appears to be over. Joining me tonight, Debbie Stothard, human rights activist, and the founder of Alternative ASEAN Network on Burma, and Elizabeth Wong, Selangor State Legislative Assembly woman for Bukit Lanjan. Welcome, both of you, Debbie and Elizabeth. It's my pleasure to have both of you in this live streaming. Hello, Debbie.
Hi.
Lee.
Nice
Hello.
to be in together, at least on screen, huh?
Yeah. It's kind of like reunion, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I still remember the last meeting that we have I think is 2019 and December. I met Ellie and Debbie in Kuala Lumpur, PJ.
Wow.
I think you know what is the event about.
What did we eat?
Yes, the birthday.
Yeah, the birthday.
Yes. Oh, yes. I remember
Someone
what we ate.
birthday.
with a big.
The big tomahawk steak.
Yeah. Then after that, there's a MCO already. Until
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
Yes. So that
thank
feels
you
like a long time ago.
Yeah. Thank you for both of you for coming for this live streaming tonight. And let me start by asking you, Debbie, to help us to get a better picture on what is going on in Myanmar. To start by giving us a sense, why now? Why now the military coup in Myanmar? As we all know, Aung San Suu Kyi kowtowed even to the military, but still ended up house arrest and charged her for illegally importing 7 walkie-talkies. What made the military decide to coup d'etat?
Okay, the main issue is that in the November general elections, the NLD won a second term with a bigger majority. And the military aligned party, the Union Solidarity and Development Party, USDP, invested a lot in their candidates, invested a lot in their campaigning. They're very organized, but they lost even more seats than in the 2015 general election. The other seats were taken up by NLD and by ethnic parties. So can you imagine? The NLD had to kind of be in partnership and, as you said, kowtow to the military, because the military still has so much political security and economic power, partly because of the 2008 constitution, which was drafted by the military. But now, if the NLD had a second mandate with a bigger majority, then it will be a little bit more bolder to and more braver to try and push for some kind of some changes, more reform in the country. So that would have been a very big threat. The senior general Min Aung Hlaing, who was the commander-in-chief, was also supposed to retire in the middle of this year because he would be too old to hold his post. So he would lose all his power. And the amount and the business empire that he and his family built up in these past few years would be at threat. Because obviously the NLD new government would probably be also pushing on anti-corruption and those kinds of reforms. And so this would have been a big problem for Senior General Min Aung Hlaing. So what he did was he decided to become the ASEAN version of Trump. He went on this whole campaign to say this is a fraudulent election. And the only difference between him and Trump is that he actually had an army of 400,000 people with guns who could actually go and arrest people, instead of a ragtag, disorganized, crazy mob that went to Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. They organized a military operation to overthrow the government, the newly elected government. That's what happened.
Yeah, thanks, Debbie. How about you, Ellie? You have released a statement and emphasized Parliament and state legislative assemblies must be allowed to proceed as usual as a venue to check and balance process to the decision made by the government. Why Malaysia has to come to a state of emergency? Is our parliament failed to carry out their duties as a legislative branch?
I think the issue is also a little bit like Burma, meaning the people who are in charge of the government are very insecure and they're very worried. So what has happened is that about a year ago, there was a bloodless coup. So there was no military on the streets, but the government changed power from the parties which were elected by the people to, a different coalition. So from Pakatan Harapan, there's now a new coalition. And this new coalition, under a new Prime Minister Muhyiddin, has been under a lot of pressure from his own coalition partners. So every few months, they'll be asking for, goodies. They'll be asking for extra, things for their own parties. And this culminated into kind of what we thought in Malaysia at that time, a showdown in the during the budget last year. So, late last year, it was very clear that the government was very shaky, but somehow they managed to pass the budget. And after that, in January, we could see people from this political party, UMNO, which is actually part of that new so-called new government, coming out and sort of disowning this Muhyiddin's government. So in this kind of situation, I believe that the current federal government is quite worried about its stability. It's worried that, anytime, there could be a special session called when they go back to Parliament, which should be in March, which is like in a few weeks' time. They are afraid that they will lose a vote of confidence in the Parliament, and therefore they will have to step down. So I think all these things sort of rolled into, plus COVID-19. So they took advantage of the situation and said this is a health emergency. But in fact, it is not about health. If you look at it, they have suspended Parliament. They've suspended elections. They've suspended all the state assemblies in all the different states. There's no reason. And so that's why we are quite worried because this is just the start. Although Muhyiddin, the Prime Minister, said that there's a sunset clause, according to him, which is in August this year, 2021. That's when the emergency will end. Anything can happen because right now the power is no longer with the legislatures. The power is no longer in the hands of the people.
Yeah. And we see last Saturday and even now, Myanmar, we saw anti-coup protests with young demonstrators spilling on the streets to denounce the country's new military regime. Despite a nationwide internet blackout, it did not stop thousands of demonstrators from gathering or protest. Debbie, is there any differences and similarities of state of emergencies in Malaysia and Myanmar?
Yes. In Myanmar, we have a brutal military with guns who are ready to kill people, ready to use lethal force. And it's because of international attention and pressure that they haven't done so. We also have in Burma, Myanmar, people with a bit more guts. I hate to say this as a Malaysian, but I work on Burma since 1988. So, these people are going out there, they are facing down guns, and even in Naypyidaw, the state capital, the equivalent of Putrajaya, public servants have left their desks and gone out in the street to face off with the military. To join the civil disobedience movement. And they are under pressure. The department heads are telling people, check who is not coming to work, putting pressure that they might lose their jobs. And still, they bravely do it in the heart of the government capital. So this is something that's quite important to understand. And that they are fed up They are not willing to give up what little reforms and what little freedoms they gained in the past nine years. They are not willing to give that up so easily or so quickly.
Yeah. Ellie, why just now Debbie also said, Malaysia seems so a bit quiet on the response to the announcement of state emergency, except Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, opposition leaders, filed suit against Muhyiddin over Malaysia Parliament suspension, and some other civil society as well also filed the suit in the court. Yeah, why the response from Malaysians seems so mild and so peaceful, quote unquote, compared to what Burmese did in the whole country, inside the country, is not outside the country. Yeah,
I want to start by saying it's because they have 10-year head start. Back in '88, we only started mass demonstrations in '98.
Yes!
10 years experience.
And then our gang in KL have to call me and say, "Hey, Debbie, you went to UN Human Rights Commission for Burma. Hey, tell us how we can go to UN Human Rights Commission for Malaysia."
That's right. So you have, first of all, the Burmese, they have 10 years advanced training and experience compared to us. but it's true. I mean, I reflect back when the emergency was first announced by the Prime Minister. I mean, that really took us by surprise. And what was even more disconcerting was that people didn't know how to respond. I was really shocked. So I think I was one of the first few people to come up even with a press statement, because I think people never thought it would happen. They didn't realize that the situation has deteriorated so badly, and they were worried to even talk about it. So you can see that everyone is a little bit quiet. So they are, the public, they are more than happy to whack the government on, standard operating procedures, Chinese New Year Eve, dinner, gatherings, that sort of thing. But when it comes to emergency, everyone is very quiet. The only thing that we've seen so far are 3 lawsuits. It's not even a lot. The first one is by Anwar Ibrahim, who wanted some questions asked, including whether or not they have a right to question the emergency. The second one is by Pakatan Harapan representatives. But they're not representing Pakatan Harapan, they're representing themselves from 3 states, from Kedah, from Johor, and I can't remember the third one. Oops. Oh, sorry, from Perak. I think sorry. So 3 of them, they filed a suit, and then of course the NGOs filed another suit. As we know, by the time the lawsuits come to court to be heard, the emergency may be over. So I don't see what is the point. It becomes a very academic exercise. So my question would be to a lot of people, where are the protesters? Where are the angry people that we've seen just a few years ago? It's just not happening. So people are just focusing on COVID-19. People are saying that, let's do this and that to make sure that the vaccines get out in time, so that we have more time. So people are talking about these sorts of issues, but not about the emergency. They don't realize that right now, the military is being deployed out on the streets. There are military checking cars. There are military people, checking the boots, asking, where are you going? And this is unheard of in modern Malaysia. And it's time that people have to start taking this very seriously, because it starts very benign, as always, whether it's military coup or non-military coup emergencies, they'll start by saying, we're doing it because we care for you. Isn't it, Debbie? We care for you so much that we have this emergency.
That's what they say. And then people are thinking they're just arguing they don't object to the jail cell. They're just arguing about the size of the cell. The thing is that This is how it starts, and people still haven't woken up to that. It's like, excuse me, can we please cut the Netflix so people stop watching Netflix and start paying attention to what's happening in front of them?
Yeah, but I think Debbie,
Yeah.
there's one reason why everyone went on the streets is because the Myanmar government cut off internet, so there's no more TikTok, no Netflix, no Instagram. Oh my goodness! So that's why half the people went out.
You have to understand the young people, they are very kick ass in Burma. They are quite tech savvy. They found ways and means around it, you see. But I think what is really, really clear. Oh my God, whose baby is that?
It's my baby, but
That's
please
Kylo's
don't.
baby.
She's fantastic.
It's now time for his meal already.
But seriously, I think if you cut the internet in Malaysia, people will definitely be out on the streets. But I think what one of the differences is this. In Burma, Myanmar, the people have lost trust in the institutions like the judiciary and all of these other public institutions that are supposed to provide a check and balance. So, in Malaysia, there hasn't been a dramatic loss of trust in law enforcement, in the judiciary, and all of these other institutions. But then, Parliament, how can you suspend Parliament? Parliament can convene by Zoom even.
Yeah, correct.
What the hell?
Very lame excuse. Very lame excuse.
Make a Facebook room. Come on. How can we just suspend everything and just hope for the best? It's not going to happen. The thing is this. Once a bunch of men get full power over the situation, a present company accepted, once a bunch of aging men get their hands on a bunch of power without accountability, they are not going to let go easily.
Yes, that's right.
Whether you're a Burmese general or I'm no politician.
Yeah, we have to learn from history. All emergencies or military coup never end up with flowers and and confetti in the air. But
correct. So
in Malaysia, the other issue is this. Honestly speaking, the opposition is also in disarray. We are not as united as before, principally because of what had happened last 1 year. And, so you don't see a very strong presence, say, in civil society movement or anyone which is leading public opinion against the emergency. So going to court, yes, I think it's important to do that. But we also have to be honest, to say that, going to court is only one small part of this whole, campaign against such draconian laws being used against the people.
Yeah, and against the democracy as well. Yeah. Both Malaysia and Myanmar are ASEAN members. Yeah. And Muhyiddin Yassin, Prime Minister Malaysia, and also recently, together with Jokowi, President of Indonesia, said they would seek an emergency meeting of the ASEAN foreign ministers regarding the coup in Myanmar. Yeah, Debbie, will this meeting reverse the military coup, or what are the possible outcomes you think?
I'm worried. I am a little bit worried that Muhyiddin and other people will tell them, no lah, that's not how you have the coup. You must have a backdoor coup, not like this. Okay, we teach you now, and then you go back to Naypyidaw and do properly.
I'm worried
the problem.
I'm worried the Myanmar generals are going to give out tips on how to run a real coup.
Oh my God! Yeah, this goes back to the late 90s when Prime Minister Mahathir, in his first incarnation as Prime Minister, he's the one who ushered in Burma as a member of ASEAN, and the way he was expecting is that, oh, Burma will be so grateful we let them in, and then gradually they will change to be like us. And we were going like, no, you will become like them.
I was arrested, I think, for that.
He was arrested, right? During the time.
Yeah. I had to cook you dinner after that when I came back to KL as a compensation for getting arrested.
Yes, that's right. I protested outside the Regent Hotel. I still remember with Teresa Koch.
Those were the good old days, right? So,
good old days.
So this is the thing that Malaysia and Myanmar is intrinsically intertwined. There are so many things which happen, so many parallels, but also the fact is we have tens of thousands of people from Burma who have fled atrocity crimes and who are in Malaysia as asylum seekers and migrants, and they were so badly treated last year because of COVID. And all of these things, the thing is that we are still one community. You cannot. When you have people fleeing atrocity crimes, there's no way a border can hold them, can keep them in the country. What is happening now in Burma? If there is a violent crackdown, COVID or no COVID, we are going to have a refugee crisis. And I think even if ASEAN leaders don't care about human rights and democracy, they have to care about the very serious threats against regional human security. If this happens, they also have to understand that all our economies are very fragile as a result of COVID. And if things fall apart in Burma, in the Burmese economy, as they're starting to, then everyone else is going to get affected. So this non-interference bullshit is bullshit. They need to get their act together and say, okay, brother, you better wind this back, because nobody in this region can afford this type of coup where people are under threat, where we're going to have a refugee crisis, where we're going to have economic collapse.
Debbie, I'm not sure whether you picked this, that there was this press release from Wisma Putra after the military coup in Myanmar, and they said, "Oh, we shouldn't do things like this, guys. Let's dial back a bit and respect democracy and human rights." And then, without realizing, I think Wisma Putra didn't get the memo that we are also in an emergency and democratic institutions are not functioning in the country.
I think when we got all the information about the possible symptoms of COVID, like hard to breathe, cannot taste, cannot smell. They forgot to add got no feeling for democracy. You lose your feeling for democracy. You get prone to coups, whether it's a backdoor coup or a military coup. This is a very fundamental symptom of COVID that nobody anticipates.
Yeah, but Debbie and Ellie, you also know that ASEAN has a charter that calls for strengthening of democracy, good governance, and rule of law. Yeah, it even has an ASEAN Human Rights Declaration. Yeah, that includes the Article 25, rights to participate in governments through democratically elected representative. Yeah, so what are these charter for, and anyone is actually uphold this kind of principle of value?
Come on, look at what's happening in Cambodia. Cambodia signs every human rights treaty known to humanity, and agreed to all the ASEAN stuff, and they did exactly the opposite. So the problem in ASEAN is that we actually don't have very high standards as far as our leaders are concerned. They're not very principled. It's all a lot of lip service, and I think it's time that we forced. We had a coup of a different kind. That we had a human rights coup. That we had a coup of principle. That we force people, whether they like it or not, to actually adhere to certain standards and principles. Because it's like, you know what? If you don't know how to do this, then get out. Just get out of the way. instead of protecting each other and perpetuating this horrible status quo that's going to drag all of us down. Because we're not just talking about fundamental civil liberties. These civil liberties are also very relevant to sustainable economic well-being. You cannot separate the two. They are fundamentally intertwined. If we continue with this deterioration, everyone is going to feel it in terms of their access to livelihood. And it's going to be the urban poor, the rural poor, the people who grow the food that we eat, who are going to be the first ones who suffer. Then by the time the impact reaches to us, it might be too late.
Yeah, I think, Debbie, apart from socioeconomic problems due to lack of democracy, I think even the fight against COVID-19 also needs democratic institutions, especially the parliament, especially the state assemblies, to be sitting, to be questioning the government, to be asking the right questions to the government. I mean, right now, what is happening in Malaysia, or at least in the state of Selangor, is this: the data, the big data, where there's contact tracing and all, is all collected by the federal government. It's not being shared to the state government, and we're not able to respond adequately. So you can see the numbers, going up, almost every day. Right now, it's stagnating because of movement control. But once movement control is put aside, it's going to shoot up again. And in the state, we're not able to respond. We don't know where to test. We don't know where the cases are, because this information is not being shared with state governments. So it's not just in Selangor, it's also in Penang, it's also in other states. So this is where legislators have to come in and question the government and ask them what is going on. And if a government is keeping secrets from the people, keeping secrets from its own partners, i.e. the state governments, I think that is very problematic in our war against COVID-19.
Yeah, correct. Because I think most of the state government in Malaysia, what I said, is like firefighting. Yeah, is there some cases, new area, there's a lot of cases, then only that the state government only can do some firefighting, go there to try to solve, to help, to do some, to give some like food basket to do this kind of food aids to these affected families. Yeah, that's very minor, but in the larger pictures, actually, under this pandemic, we can also show that the capability on how the government can really handle this crisis. So just now, Debbie also mentioned, the ASEAN, actually, they are in this lip service. This institution actually cannot do much on the current situation in Myanmar. And also, we also know that the familiar playbook of dictatorship, is like suspending parliament, shutting down internet services, suspending flights, or detaining its critics. Yeah, so Ellie, this question is to you. Do you agree that the Myanmar political system is designed to preserve the army interests? Yeah, no matter what the voters say they want. Yeah, like for example, last general election in Myanmar, they vote for NLD. Yeah, but after all, the military will get a coup d'etat and then take over the whole government. Yeah, so do you agree that the whole political system is actually serve the interest of the military?
I mean, if you look at Myanmar political system, I mean, yes, it was unfortunately a compromise that the democratic forces had to make, a few years ago with the military, so that they can have things like an actual elections and things like that. But the military has always been, hovering over elected representatives and people like Aung San Suu Kyi and also the different political parties. There's no denying on that matter. So definitely it's been designed in such a way that they cannot run too far off. So it's a little bit different from Malaysia. I mean, we are quite fortunate that we don't have that kind of political system. Ours is a Westminster system.
Not yet. Be careful. Be careful.
Hope springs it. What is it? Hope springs eternal.
Hope springs eternal.
But at least we have some. We have a long history. Of course, the Commonwealth and everything. A long history, and our political system and democratic system.
Hey, Ellie?
Ellie is frozen.
Yeah, Ellie frozen.
Oh, yeah, I'm back.
Okay. We're
Okay.
going to call you Elsa if you keep freezing.
Yeah. So stay with us. Don't go anywhere because tonight we also got a few questions from our netizen. We have Sanjiva Lianich. Yeah.
From Geneva, my buddy.
Oh, your buddy.
Hi, Sanjiva.
Yes.
No see.
Yes. Yeah,
It looks like we have to go back to the Geneva circuit, Debbie. I thought we left that ages ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, then we have Cheryl Stoddard, I think your sister, right?
That's my sister.
Oh, who's that?
Yeah.
I've
Question
never
for
heard of
Ellie.
that person. Who's that?
Cheryl, you got question for Ellie. Is the response in Malaysia muted because it was Pakatan Harapan who self-sabotaged and caused the downfall of an elected government?
Oh.
Many Malaysians are wondering who they are really annoyed with. Pakatan Harapan for not being able to manage Tun Mahathir, or the other side for grabbing power. Many of us are actually annoyed with all the political parties. Yeah, so Ellie, do you want to respond to this?
I love you, Cheryl.
Just that.
But no, I think that's a fair enough comment. Definitely, everyone is absolutely disheartened at what has happened, and they are even more disheartened when they see Pakatan Harapan unable to return to power through many attempts. So I think that that is something that we have to think about. But with all opposition movements, all people's movement, there must be clarity. There must be strong leadership. And I think once our opposition leaders, we have so many of them, and they have so much time, when they get together,
Ellie, take over. Coup them.
when they get together, surely they can find a reason to get people, behind them and really go against this emergency. I think people getting tired. I mean, all of us are exhausted. I mean, Debbie, how long have you been doing this?
I feel like I'm Danny Glover in Lethal Weapon. I'm getting too old for this shit.
We started when we had black hair, and now we have white hair and blonde hair and grays. So, but we're still at it. There's when it comes to democracy, vigilance is something that we have to continue to have. There's never. I wouldn't say there's never. There's no such thing as a fairy tale ending for movements. It's always a work in progress. So I see what has happened since last year. Something like a pit stop, something for us to sit down, evaluate, and hopefully consolidate so that the next time we are back in power, we make sure a lot of these things don't happen.
No, you have to always understand. The empire always strikes back.
That's right.
So every time we have a win, we have to already go, how do we move forward and cover our back so that these guys don't come and grab us from behind? That's the issue. So, it's an ongoing process because no one is going to give up power easily and no one is going to keep quiet when the power is taken away from them. So we have to keep up. We have to really be intelligent about this, and I think we have to learn from. We have to learn our lessons.
Yeah.
So the point in Malaysia is most people believe that the current government, the current prime minister, does not have the majority support in parliament. So it is in fact a minority government. We can call it that because it's not a majority anymore. It's a minority government. Now it's using emergency powers to make sure that its powers and time in government is extended till, I don't know when.
Until we are great, until we are 80 years old or something like that.
We'll never know. We'll never know. So if you look at that, we should not allow this to happen. We should not say let's wait until August. Let's wait until the next elections, because more and more, the longer we wait, the more our hands will be tied back, our legs will be tied, our mouths will be shut. Anything can happen. So this is something that we really have to look at all our Burmese friends, what they're doing. I mean, they're just absolutely incredible. I salute them all.
Yeah.
I think one of the exciting things is that the young people have actually called for targeted economic sanctions and called on companies to be responsible. When going back to the earlier question about the system favoring the military, what we have to understand is that the civilian government inherited a civil service which was essentially the general administrative department of the army. And all the state-owned enterprises were controlled by the army and the major corporations. Just imagine if corporations like Petronas in Malaysia, controlled by the military still didn't give up power control of that. So they really and this is why we really need to support targeted economic sanctions against military-owned companies in Burma, because that's one way to make sure that the generals don't profit from the coup.
Yeah. So I think just now Sanjeeva Lianesh also asking a question. Has any ASEAN body made a statement on Myanmar? Yeah, actually, I think Myanmar's...
Aicha. The ASEAN Interparliamentary Commission, sorry, not ASEAN, ASEAN Intergovernmental Commission on Human Rights, Aicha, did make a statement. Finally, after all these years, they made one statement on Myanmar. Hallelujah.
And the Malaysian government.
And the Malaysian government.
Yeah, but I think Myanmar's neighbors most probably will do nothing to further isolate the country. They will continue to mind their own business, I think.
Well, the thing is that there's no way you can mind, even if you mind your own business, what's happening in Burma is going to affect you directly. So but might as well get ahead of the game and and make sure that this situation is not prolonged.
But just now, Debbie, you said you have some kind like targeted sanction, But we know that most ASEAN or Asian countries will continue doing business with Myanmar. While it was ruled by the military junta. And in recent years, I think Japan and other nations also have invested in the country as an alternative manufacturing base to Thailand. So we will see that this targeted sanction may not be able to really give an impact on the military. What do you think about that?
We're living in a global economy where supply chains and value chains are very transparent. So if you have targeted sanctions as against a military corporation, it means that all these companies have to check that their supply chain or their business relationship do not link to that company, that military corporation. If they do, they might face they might have to face investigation or a fine or some type of punitive action. And actually, when you think about it, the sanctions imposed by the US in 2004 is the thing that shook ASEAN up, because if you're a Singaporean investor with a factory or business, and you are in partnership with a military company, you cannot sell your stuff in the US market. That's basically what we are trying to make happen. Then, of course, if you want to make money, you have to stop supporting and stop partnering with these military companies and go and partner with a civilian company. So the income and the value goes straight back to the civilians, not to the military. At the moment, we are fighting mini monopolies in Myanmar, because those are military companies who do whatever they like. They grab land, they violate people's rights, and they get an unfair advantage against civilian companies.
Yeah, but Debbie, some people think the winner will be China, which will now become even more important source of financial help as Western sanctions take toll. Yeah,
one of the things I'm going to tell you is that people who use China, they use China as an excuse not to do anything. And they say, oh, what about China? Okay, I will tell you something.
Yeah.
If military companies are sanctioned and their partnership affect the products are involved, linked to Chinese products that they try to sell the US, the Chinese products cannot sell. The thing is that we're already seeing that with the Uyghur slave labor. All these poor Uyghur people kept in concentration camps as slave laborers. That slave labor has entered supply chain of various products, and US Customs already, because the US government made a sanction on this type of product, all of these products are being seized by US Customs, cannot sell in the US market. And this is what we should have as a global movement. So then people say, okay, even if I care or don't care about human rights or democracy, I still have to look after my business. And it's not profitable to do business with the military.
Yeah. So Ellie, where is the hope for Myanmar and Malaysia now? Is there any hope left for Myanmar and Malaysia?
As eternally hopeful Democrats, we always say that it really rests with the people. I mean, there's only so much NGOs can do. Of course, political parties have a role as well. They're also part of civil society. But at the end of the day, it's about how the people want to respond, how they want to respond to military coups, how they want to respond to backdoor coups, how they want to respond to emergencies. So, I mean, this is something that may unfold in the next, few weeks or few months or so. This one we have to see, and of course, all of us have a role to play. I think what is interesting was, Debbie, I have to tell you this story. Just a few weeks ago, true story. Just a few weeks ago, I'm cleaning my house, cleaning, and so I found a pack of postcards, and they were, on Burma, and I think I got these postcards like 25 years ago. So they had Dorsu, they had pictures of NLD, and I thought, I thought to myself, oh well, now seems to be going quite okay in Burma. This was
very
Do you remember the set of postcards? I think I got them from you. It was like sitting in the forest. A set of postcards. So I said, Burma is really, it's okay lah, boleh tahan lah. The time, the emergency, all these things, none of the military thing came up. So I said, okay lah, I think it's time to let go some of these memories.
Come back.
Yesterday,
so I
what
have a
do we
photo
do?
of Aung San Suu Kyi in the forest, sitting very demurely. I think you know which photo that is.
Yes. Wearing a chin outfit. And she wasn't wearing any shoes.
Hey, later, Ellie, you can share that postcard here.
I already recycled.
You throw it away. You throw it away.
I recycled it. I didn't throw it
Oh,
away.
really? Okay. Recycle.
No,
Trying
actually, I
trying
have
to live a
I'm sorry.
minimalist
Only
life.
left in memory. Now, only left in memory.
I have the same story. We've been reorganizing our office layout, and then I found all of these free Burma stickers in different languages. I said,
Yes.
yeah, we
Yes.
didn't distribute this, like, ayo, so sayang lah, I don't want to throw out lah. Let's keep it and archive it. Now I said, now we have to use it again. Oh, good.
Yeah, Debbie, I even recycled your butterfly campaign.
Ayo.
Do you remember the silver butterfly campaign?
Yeah, those are the stickers. I have more. Don't worry. I even have in Klingon language.
So,
Ellie,
Now,
your
Ellie,
line is
please frozen again.
again frozen.
Ellie,
Elsa.
are you in Myanmar, Malaysia? Why is the internet so bad? Why are you freezing?
This is the playbook of
I
dictatorship.
think, yeah, they learned it from Myanmar.
You are live from Myanmar, Ellie. From that, you are live from Yangon.
Yeah, that's why your internet is so bad. Are you in Myanmar, Malaysia?
That's why we need the parliament to ask these questions. These ask hard questions. What
No,
Yeah,
but
so-
seriously, I really want to support what Ellie said in terms of the loss of democracy in Malaysia can actually kill people because of COVID. The fact that you don't have state legislation, the state legislators working, that they can't ask questions, we can't look at what's going on and be able to respond locally. It means that people are dying because there's a lack of parliament. Seriously. And I think if you want to talk about COVID and state of emergency, this is a case in point that people are dying because there's no democracy, because the local authorities cannot respond adequately and rapidly to COVID because all the data is kept by the national government. That is just unbearable.
I think similarly in Myanmar, in Burma, because of the conflict and people fighting back, of course in the military will respond very aggressively like before. I mean, we've seen that so many times in the past. So you see an influx of refugees streaming into Thailand. Just Debbie, for your information, just yesterday I think, or day before, a report came in saying that there were already people arriving from Myanmar using boats in Malaysia, and they were stopped. So we're going to see this a lot of Burmese refugees once again, coming into other parts of Southeast Asia, trying to escape, the fighting and all. So that is, I think that's the real tragedy. While all of us should be working together, using whatever democratic means, democratic institutions to fight against this real battle, real war against COVID-19. We are instead fighting amongst ourselves and, making life more miserable for certain people.
If we don't get our act together on COVID and we don't preserve democracy and strengthen democratic institutions' ability to deal with COVID, we are totally screwed when it comes to climate change. I have to say, I'm saying this. I'm cursing. I'm cursing because I'm not in.
You're not on TV. You're not on BBC.
So I know Al Jazeera, BBC, so I can simply talk as I like. But really, we will be screwed because this entire region is so vulnerable to climate change. And actually dealing with COVID is pretty much a rehearsal for how we're going to deal with climate change and all the other, and also pandemics that come later.
Yeah. Okay. We also have now Mabel Ao Maple. We have milk tea alliance. Mabel. Yeah. We have milk tea alliance with Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Thailand last year. How about Malaysia and Myanmar? It's a challenge.
什么是 milk tea? Is it boba tea?
Yeah, I think like what
The Hong Kong milk tea.
Yeah, Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Thailand. The people's uprising, the youth,
Yeah.
rise up against the governments.
Yeah.
Actually, the young people in Burma, Myanmar, they already put up a lot of graphics and art, and they have a milk tea alliance.
Oh wow, that's
they
good.
have a milk tea alliance. Like instead of our oldies, race feast, they are all their milk tea alliance people, hands going up with different flags of the countries in the region. So now I have to swap from coffee to milk tea lah, I guess.
You can have both, no worry. You still can have
Okay. I will drink both. Not in the same cup though. Not in the same cup.
Yeah. I think this is where, the new generation can come in and play a major role and recreate or redraw what they feel should be, the new Malaysia, the new Myanmar. I think, there's been a lot of opportunities for them in the last few years. So, and they've seen, how the oldies, I call ourselves oldies, used to demonstrate. And I think they can do so much better than us.
In there's pictures of the protest because today is the National Strike Day in Myanmar, and then there's pictures of these kids on rollerblades lah, very very stylishly protesting and waving banners and all that. But I must say something. The mainstream media keeps saying that there are protesters are using red, which is the color of. Actually, NLD took red and yellow because it was the color of resistance of the 8888 and previous movements. So, this is not about NLD. This struggle is bigger than NLD.
Yeah,
Debbie, you know that red and yellow are my state colors.
Yes, I noticed because I'm also from Selangor. Hello.
Oh, yeah, sorry, Ampang.
Yeah. But please don't ask me to sing the anthem of Selangor. I have to practice a little bit. Ayo, sorry, Kailun. You are the host, and then you got two anarchistic guests simply walaping,
just
talking to each other. I'm so sorry.
Okay. No problem. But this is the last question because we are running out of time. Yeah, we can have this after this. Yeah, never mind. But I think last questions to both of you, Debbie and Ellie. What's next for democracy in Myanmar and Malaysia? Yeah, what can the international community do? What can we do as well to restore the democracy in Malaysia and Myanmar?
We got to work on it. We got to keep up the fight, keep up the resistance. We can work for democracy in Malaysia and Myanmar at the same time. But we really got to get some gut. We really got to get some energy. And, we must be willing to say, no, this is not acceptable.
Yeah. How about you, Ellie?
I think this, in Malaysia, I believe there's going to be a new chapter being written. And this new chapter is not going to be written by those who have been in politics all this time. It's going to be written by young people, new people maybe perhaps not in the political circles, not even in the NGO circles, because we've come to this particular level. We've got birthday before, we had mass demonstrations. We even managed to win the general elections, back in 2018. So we've already come up to this level. So now it's for the new generation to come in and build on and continue, making sure that we reach, even higher heights than we have now. So I'm very hopeful. Nothing is too dark. I'm very hopeful. And I believe that, they will be acting very soon. So we can see, in fact, a lot of things that are, very, very organically grown, civil society groups, youth groups, and they're just doing their own thing. I think it's really fantastic. So, we'll be there, together with them.
Yeah.
Serving them the milk tea. We'll be there to serve them the milk tea.
Yeah, let's get the milk tea alliance. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, we are coming to the end of the program. Yeah, and I think today's Debbie and Ellie, I think we think that democracy is definitely in retreat and declining in Malaysia and Myanmar. Yeah, and
It's under attack. It's not retreating. It's under
yeah,
attack.
it's under attack. Yeah,
We have to push back.
under siege, under siege. Yeah. And then we have to fight it back. Yeah, and then we know that how the power exercise in a democracy is very crucial, especially during the pandemic. Yeah, there is no other way. Yeah, besides to be to be more accountable and also let the people to get involved, participate in the process of decision making will be very crucial. And how to make the democracy work will be the challenge just ahead us. Yeah, and thank you again to Debbie and Ellie. Yeah, for taking your time talking to me. Yeah, and I
They
learned a
invite
lot
us back.
from
We had
our
such a good
conversation.
time. Call us back, please,
Yeah, and last, I think just now we said we know that the people from both countries, Myanmar and Malaysia, we should not give up or be cynical to the call for democracy. Yeah, like what Ellie said just now. Be hopeful. Yeah, fighting for hope. Yeah, the darkest hours are just before dawn. Yeah, so thank you all of you for being part of my program this week. Stay safe and stay healthy. See you soon. Bye bye.
Bye.
See you.
See you.
See you.
Bye.